Greetings. This is Griff Ruby, the Nostalgia Catholic, now here to discuss the eighth story of Isaac Asimov's to see print, and the second one to see print on the pages of Astounding Science Fiction. This was a story known as Homo Sol. And let's see here on the contents. Here it is, Homo Sol by Isaac Asimov. Small print says, the humanoids of the galaxy didn't like the ways of man, but a psychologist pointed out they'd have to like them or change them fast. Well, what about that? On page 117. There's really not much here that didn't also get reprinted in the early Asimov, which is the other place that the story appears in print. The main other place, maybe the only, I'm not sure. One of the things, well, let's take a look at all this. We have all these aliens gathered in some sort of council. Although this seems kind of small scale, and there's supposedly some 288 alien worlds represented. But here we see them, they have various shapes, and some are tall and short and squat and hairy and bald and pointy-eared and no-eared and, what have you. But it's a gathering of all these different alien beings. Captain reads, the galaxy had a nice, stable civilization till Earthmen, the prize gadget maniacs of space, came along. They had a rather interesting way of preferring who gets to be a member of this galactic association. The 288 delegates, one from each of the 288 oxygen atmosphere, water chemistry worlds of the system, and all the beings that seem overall roughly humanoid. I wonder, are they excluding all other kinds of aliens? Even if they're intelligent, or is there just no other kind of intelligent life? It's not quite a humanoid-only galaxy, is it? Because you've got these different beings, but they differ no more than humans and, Vulcans or Cardassians or Klingons. I mean, they differ, but not really that much. I think most of them could be played by a character in a suit. So that's, two arms. Nobody's got three arms. Nobody's got tentacles. Anyway. But you've got this galactic association, and this story was more than anything else an education for young Isaac Asimov himself. When he was trying to get into the pages of Astounding Science Fiction, John Campbell, I think, more allowed the story as a way of being an education for him than really because he wanted the story that much. It was a chance to kind of teach him, this is the kind of story I want. Humans are different than all the others. They may or may not be as advanced technologically, but they've got a drive and ambition, this or that others just don't have. And it's interesting what Isaac Asimov says about him in connection with all of this. It was really kind of an unconscious, it was an unconscious racism in a manner of speaking. That somehow John Campbell, for all his treating everyone with respect, he never made young Isaac Asimov feel at all uncomfortable over being Jewish. He took him seriously as a young author, and that's it. He didn't say, well, I'm not going to look at you because of this or that. He just, you're an inspiring author. I see that in you. That's all. That's enough for me. And I'll give you the time and everything it takes until I can, brush you up and train you up into being an author. That might be a real asset to my stable of authors for my magazine, which is exactly how it went. You see, but he still tended to see man the explorer, man the darer as somehow something Nordic northwestern Europe, maybe like England or Iceland, maybe I don't know. So maybe Vikings. It's hard to say, but at any rate, who's to say people from other parts of the world can be as much daring or explorers or what have you? Well, okay, it was an unconscious one, and but it also meant that this changed, Asimov's writing direction substantially. It drove him in two directions: one being a human-only galaxy, such as the Foundation, and the other in being stories about robots, which, once again, if you're dealing with robots, this whole thing doesn't matter, because if the human does better, well, we're still superior, and even if we don't do as well, it's because we're such great, brilliant engineers and gadgeteers that, again, we're still, it's still what we made, and that still kind of ends up reflecting back on us. So what have we got here in this actual story itself? One other thing in that story that's kind of intriguing that I really seeing for the first time is this story that's told so very much as in terms of these people holding these various conversations, almost as it were behind the scenes, power brokers, or even just ordinary beings having conversations about what happened or what they're going to do and how they expect it to work. So rather than seeing much of the action itself, and this is really, it's almost, oh gosh, it's even more than the Foundation. I mean, Foundation is people talking in rooms. This is people of various alien species talking in rooms. And very little was done. I'm a psychologist, and they have this bit where this one main guy is constantly experimenting with a squid that if you give it exact, very specific stimuli, the thing passes out. And they're trying to figure out why. They're trying to turn psychology into an exact science. Okay, that's kind of cool. But they're not there yet, obviously. Still trying to figure that out. Vary the stimulus even a little bit, a series of different color lights and a sound. And if it isn't all exactly right, nothing happens. And if it's exactly right, this particular species of squid just passes out, goes into a coma, dies, whatever. And so he's so obsessed with that. And they have one other little thing he's working on with some mathematicians. And they kind of like, all this stuff ends up with A equals A, a simple identity. Tautology, I guess would be the proper word, but at any rate, as well, the reasoning was kind of circular, so there's nothing you could end up with that. Okay, interesting. Which had nothing to do with really the story, it just kind of deepens the character a little bit. He's, I guess, trying to be a scientist in all of this. So, what are they trying to do? They met up with these Earthlings who have, for the first time, traveled from Earth to Alpha Centauri, which I guess is a member of this Galactic Federation. It's convenient. And now they said, well, now that you've proved you can do that, you can join our Federation. So they meet it with the humans, and at first the humans accept them, then they're kind of not so sure, and then they're kind of like reacting against them. Like, just a total distrust. We're not going to be ruled by alien monsters, kind of a thing. Was this something about having them come in and rule us? Anyway, that's how that seems to go. And it's just, well, let's just say the humans kind of turn out to be, we better find some way to tame them. They end up accepting them into a federation that the humans really didn't even want to be accepted into, with the idea that we will try to train them into our ways of civilization, and that will hopefully keep them from coming out and blowing us all up, because otherwise they just might. Interesting commentary on human beings, and no matter how else you look at it. But it also kind of has this thing of, well, these humans have something real special, better watch out for them. And even the paragraphs in there, some of them he says weren't even written by himself. I it was almost like the one in Office Space where the guy's always saying about the boss of the lady's always talking about you need to wear more flair. I mean, 15 pieces is the minimum. We want you to express yourself. We encourage that. She says, so more, right? No, you're not getting it. It's like, why can't you just say, okay, I want you to wear 37 pieces of flair, and then you just stick them on and be done with it. It's like, no, we want you to express yourself with your flair. Well, she ends up expressing herself a totally different way, and and here is kind of Campbell was kind of doing that to Isaac, John, because he was kind of like, well, I want you to have a little more discussion. I want you to, but he was really quite willing to clarify that what he wanted was that the humans had to be that special among all the different humanoid species of the galaxy. That's what he really wanted. And as soon as he saw that, he still kind of moved the story. It took a couple of revisions to get there, which he kind of resolved he wasn't going to do, but he did. And luckily the next one was taken, so we can see it now. And even then, after the story was taken, John Campbell still went ahead and inserted some paragraphs here and there about the technological superiority of humans or something that, if we go through it carefully, you can probably find which ones they are. They are in the original print and they're in the reprints, by the way, at least in the early Asimov. He did not go through and just put it back to what he submitted. He just went with what's there in print. He probably didn't have the original. So, that's how that kind of ends up. This is an interesting snapshot. It's September 1940. The war has already started in Europe. America, so far, is kind of able to mostly stay out of it. We'll supply weapons to some of the future allies, but that was about the extent of it. It was kind of a time for extreme patriotism. This cigarette commercial kind of intrigues me. This is a very patriotic-looking drum majorette. I mean, it's so World War II. I mean, they're ready to go, There's a third one. I wonder if they were the Andrews sisters. There's also a lot of development towards nuclear stuff and atomic power and so forth. And they would talk about that a lot. So, let's see here. Newer knowledge indicates that maybe the blueprints need more changing as McCain for atomic power. As McCann explained it, it seemed that a mass of uranium-235 surrounded with water would react about as follows. A stray neutron produced naturally by cosmic rays or other accidental source would start things. One neutron entering one U-235 atom, well, they didn't talk about uranium-235 isotope, would cause it to fission, giving rise to 2 or 3, which would be slowed down to cause further reaction and produce 4 and 9 new neutrons and explosion. Kaboom! They just described, well, remember the 2 first atom bombs actually used in war. The first one, called the Little Boy, used on Hiroshima, and the other one they called the Fat Man, used on Nagasaki. Fat Man was a plutonium bomb. Most nuclear bombs have generally involved plutonium. But the Little Boy was unusual, maybe even unique, in using uranium-235. Basically, all you had to do was get enough of it all together in a compact space, critical mass, and I guess water seems to be a part of this as well somehow. Well, they didn't quite know what would happen or what it would take to prevent this, so they were proceeding with extreme caution here. This would be a controllable reaction because uranium-235 fission produces fast neutrons, and only slow neutrons could cause the explosion of the atom. I didn't know that. Something which would slow the neutrons would be necessary. Uranium-235 atoms being unable to do this before the neutrons wandered away. The rate of the reaction could then be controlled by supply or removing the neutron-slowing material, water, or cadmium rods, or what have you. We're not far off from Enrico Fermi's first controlled nuclear reaction, by the way. The prime difficulty seemed to be in controlling the deadly wash of gamma rays which would inevitably accompany the reaction, for gamma rays are highly penetrant and highly injurious to human life. McCann pointed out that uranium metal itself would be the most efficient gamma stopper possible. If it weren't that being radioactive, it emits them naturally. So, anyway, they're talking about the details of it. They've already hinted at the structure of the bomb that they would be using several years later at the end of World War II. So it's really kind of something, And you see this obsession for devices and gadgets. And even the rocket to go to Alpha Centauri was atomically powered. I guess you had to have atomic power to be able to go do interplanetary rocket flight. So it's well, I think I've said enough about that one. Anyway, after that, Asimov's priorities will shift over either to robots or human-only galaxies, or at least mostly human-only galaxies, as we'll see. Some of the stories yet to come. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.